W.T.F. Nation Radio
is in the house.
If that's really a thing, and I get authorized to do it once, it's pretty much gonna be me sitting there talking shit, like, constantly.
Freedom is the right of all sentient beings. Broadcasting live from the basement of the Pentagon. This is WTF Nation Radio.
This is a public service announcement from C.T. Fletcher. I will not contribute to the pussification of a nation. Get your punk ass out there and work for it, motherfucker.
I said, bitch, I'm the man of the house.
Yeah, you said bitch, though. You called your wife a bitch.
Yeah. I looked my woman in the eye sockets. I told her straight out. I just said it, man. I said it. I said.
Let's roll.
Oh, guys, what's going on? Hey, this is the return of the Monday edition. I am so sorry for being tardy. Not really tardy, actually. We're starting just on time. I got the gents in the room right now, standing by, and just letting you know right quick, it's good to be back, broadcasting deep within the basement of the Pentagon on this 31 March 2025. If I'm like holding myself, coughing and stuff. It's because I had surgery and I was gone. So I was convalescing. So yeah, I when you're old and you try to do things like the youngins do and you bust your guts open and then you're losing weight. And then the docs are like, well, yeah, you're not losing your gut because your guts are hanging out. So, had to get surgery real quick. So I am good to go. So if you see me leaning back and forth or, starting to sway or wincing or whatever, or trying to hold down my cough, it's because I don't want to pop no stitches and bleed out on air. So anyways, good to be back. I have two returning guests. I have Master Sergeant retired Jack Dona coming back. And of course, our favorite friend from Stolen Valor, Anthony Anderson. They are both coming back. Gentlemen, it is good to see you all, man. This is awesome. Dudes. Okay. So we cut all the videos, we cut all the fanfare. It's time to get down to some business. What is going on, man? Any one of you guys want to start? Jack, actually, I think we should start with you because the last time you came on, us three, we could blab for hours, so it's not like we're not have enough to talk about. The last time you came on, we were discussing the bill going forward, or the bill being proposed to go forward for Stolen Valor legislation in Arizona. So from our last discussion, can you give us an update as of now?
Okay, so basically where we're at right now is from the last time we spoke, the bill was at the last minute was put on the agenda by Wendy Rogers, and at the same time she issued a letter almost simultaneously, basically alleging that Walt Blackman never reached out to her after she reached out to him about doing amendments to the bill. And there's no record that she basically sat on it for 2.5, 3 weeks until the last possible moment when it could be put on the agenda. So she put it on the agenda. A bunch of people showed up. I believe that was when was that, Anthony? Was that Wednesday or Thursday? That was Thursday.
That was Wednesday.
Wednesday. Wednesday in the legislature, the Senate, 70 plus veterans, a lot of Korean War vets, Vietnam vets, old timers. A lot of people came from all over the state. Place was packed. Wendy Rogers basically came out and said, I'm holding the bill because Walt Blackman has not reached out to me in regards to amendments that I want to do to the bill. And so therefore I'm holding the bill. And then she proceeded to continue with her business. And one of the representatives, a Democrat, Senator Ortiz, she after all of the business was done, she basically put a motion on the floor because the bill was already put on the agenda to vote on the bill, to have the committee vote on the bill. And Wendy Rogers basically said, no, we're not going to vote on the bill because I've already said I've held the bill. And with that, this meeting is adjourned. So the minute she wrapped the gavel down, that was it. HB 2030 died officially. It died. Okay, because that was the last week, the last deadline where she could have put that on the agenda and got it passed. So it was all deliberate. What she did was all deliberate. There's no electronic record or any verbal record or any witness whatsoever that her office ever reached out to Walt Blackman to do an amendment. So, but fortunately, Walt, working with one of his colleagues, Senator Shauna Bullock, she agreed to do And what that is basically this is a bill that's already made it all the way through the legislature. And so what she does is she agrees to strike all of the text in the bill that she sponsored and got through the House and the Senate, and replace it with all of the wording that was in HB 2030. So I'm not. Tony, you probably know what that bill number is. I don't know what it is now, or it's HB.
It's SB. It's an SB number.
SB.
Yeah, I believe it's SB 1324. Don't
Yeah.
quote me on that.
Yeah.
Actually, I can go back to my Facebook Messenger because I actually reached out to Doug Sterner 2 days ago.
Mhm.
And for those that don't know in the audience, Doug Sterner and his wife wrote the original Stolen Valor Act, the 2005 act that was deemed unconstitutional in 2012 by the Supreme Court, which I 100% agree with. The way it was worded, it was way too broad. Me and Master Sergeant Dona could be sitting in a bar somewhere, and Dona could tell me he's a Navy SEAL, and he would have broke the law. And that's an infringement on somebody's free speech. I do not agree with that. To me, that is not stolen valor. Stolen valor is when you do as done, which is Rogers can stand up there and say she wants to change the bill. It doesn't meet constitutionality. Warren Peterson can do the same thing. They've both been told by lawyers, by constitutional lawyers, that this bill is sound. This bill meets constitutional criteria. It meets First Amendment. It does not violate anybody's tangible benefit, which is if you go and run for office and say, hey, I'm a Vietnam combat veteran. I flew a Cobra in Vietnam, and you didn't, and you gained donations off of that, you have violated anybody's free speech because you gained a tangible benefit.
Yep.
She doesn't like me. I really don't care. I'm here for veterans. I'm not here for Wendy Rogers. Steve Slayton is a liar. He's a fraud. And not only did he one of the most egregious stolen valors, he claims that he flew a Cobra called the Mean Mr. Mustard that was shot down in Vietnam in 1972. The pilots survived the crash. One of the pilots was hit. The other pilot was pulling him out of the aircraft, and the NBA came out of the hillside and slaughtered those two heroes on top of that hill, and their bodies were recovered the next day. So Steve Slayton, you can try to sue me because you think I stole your identity or I stole your social security number. Buddy, I got your records via FOIA, and you are not a Vietnam combat veteran. And you're spitting in the face of every Vietnam veteran that has ever served in combat. So come at me with all your threats that you're threatening Miss Molly Ottman and that you're threatening Walt Blackman and all these other people with. Come at me with that, brother, because I got something for you. I promise you. You are a disgrace to the veteran community, Steve Slayton. You are a disgrace. And Wendy Rogers, you standing up there supporting this man, you're a disgrace to it. You might be a veteran, but in my eyes, you are a disgrace. You are a disgrace to this country, and you're a disgrace to the many men and women that have fought and died for this country.
Not to mention that, dude. Oh, go ahead. I'm sorry, Jack. Go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, and I lend my full support to everything that Anthony just quite eloquently and succinctly put out to your listening audience. But SB 1424 now, I guess you were right, Tony. It's SB 1424. It's Stryker Bill 1424, and right now where we're at is it's scheduled to go to the floor of the House, and it's going to pass in the House, and it will pass in the Senate. But what's going on right now is, Warren Peterson got on Fox News yesterday and basically said that, we hope we can work together and we can work something out with Walt Blackman. But he is not dealing in good faith, and Tony's more dialed in on that than I am because I've been running around doing a lot of other stuff. But I did an interview yesterday also with Fox News in this regard, and it appears to me, and I'll let Tony take it from here. It appears to me that this is beyond just Warren Peterson. There are people, and I'm just speculating on this, but there appears to be person or persons who absolutely do not want this bill to pass. And we just found out just this afternoon that uh, I don't know if, yeah, I mean, I don't know if I'm just going to go ahead and say it that apparently Mr. Peterson, the Senate president, behind Walt Blackman's back, contacted uh, Shauna Bullock, Senator Shauna Bullock, who put forward the striker bill, and told her, hey, when this thing passes the House and it goes to the Senate, don't bring it to the Senate floor, because she's the one that has to bring it to the Senate floor because it's her bill. She has to actually. So he's basically telling her behind the scenes, don't bring it to the Senate floor. And of course, if she never puts the motion forward for it to go to the floor, then it takes Peterson off the hook, because then Peterson can go, well, the sponsor of the bill, the striker bill, never put it to the floor of the Senate, so I'm off the hook.
Right.
So there's dishonesty going on right now. I mean, it's to the larger picture, and I communicated this roughly an hour ago. I can only speculate that they would go to this length. Okay, I don't think this is about Wendy Rogers anymore. I don't think this is about Steve Slayton anymore. I believe that there may be people in high positions of elected office in the state of Arizona, whether it's in the legislature, maybe it's in county governments, maybe it's in city governments, that may have misrepresented their military service, and they're burning up the lines saying, don't pass this bill. And the reason why I say that is because the measure that Peterson is telling Blackman he wants removed is the measure which calls for jail time, and this is key, and for the elected official to be removed from office. That's key.
Yeah, the key to that is, and because I had one person in the comments on my X account stating, "Oh well, I agree with this Stolen Valor bill, but that's the only part I don't agree with, because if that person was elected, it should be up to the voters." And in a way, I agree. But if you get elected under false pretenses, if you lied to your constituents like Steve Slayton so blatantly did, and try to take elected office and you're representing your constituents on a lie, the bill states, and I've had it read by two constitutional lawyers, including Doug Sterner, who wrote the original 2005 bill and helped with the 2013 federal bill, has spoken to Congress. This bill, it meets constitutional form. In that bill, it states that once a person, a jury of their peers and sentenced, then they would be removed from office. So it's not just you get removed from office. No, they have to be charged. Law enforcement has to charge them. They have to go in front of a judge or a jury, whichever they choose. And if they are found guilty and they are sentenced to jail time, then they will be removed from office. That is the key part of that legislation. They're not just going to get removed from office until they're found guilty by a court of law. So, and I can pull my Facebook Messenger up here. I just spoke with Doug just a few minutes before coming online here. And his exact words to me were, and he's 3 days, said, this is a very, very knowingly represents and within amendment challenge, which the Stolen Valor Bill of 2005 did not. There's no constitutional issues. It is pretty much in line with the federal bill. The key is knowing misrepresentation, and so, and that's coming from the man himself. I mean, he wrote the federal bills. Or whoever else, Wendy, to Another thing about what I want to say about Wendy Rogers. Wendy Rogers has a conflict of interest. Even after finding out that Steve Slayton committed an egregious act of stolen valor, he didn't just lie. He walked on the graves of 2 fallen soldiers when he claimed he flew Mr. Mean Mustard in combat in Vietnam, which is a lie. And I posted my investigation at the top of my Stolen Valor X-Book page. If people want to go look, I have memorandums in there from the pilots that were in Korea in 1973 when Steve was there, and they said there is no way Steve Slayton served in Vietnam. If they, the time he got to Korea, the Paris Peace Accords were already in effect. If we would have flown a combat aircraft over Vietnam or Cambodia during the peace accords, it would have been an international incident. Wendy Rogers knows this, but Wendy Rogers doesn't care because she is so intertwined with Steve Slayton. And Steve Slayton has donated so much money to her that I think that's got a lot to do with it too. It's not just their friends and their buddies, but he's filling her coffers. And so she is trying to protect him by killing this bill. And Warren Peterson, by trying to go around everybody else's back and trying to make it look like he has nothing to do with it, that this bill dies. Mr. Peterson, I'm speaking to you directly, sir. This is in your hands. If this bill dies, it is on you. It is not on Wendy Rogers now. It is not on Walter Blackman. It is on Mr. Warren Peterson. And I can tell you 100% that the voters are watching. I've heard from veterans. I've got emails. I've got DMs. I've gotten phone calls. 72 veterans showed up that day for that committee when Wendy Rogers slapped that bill and said, I'm not hearing it today. And I've heard from those veterans. They're pissed. I've heard from law enforcement. They're pissed. Mm-hmm. They want this bill. The people have spoken. Listen to your people. Don't listen to somebody that's gonna fill your coffers or get you think it's gonna help you get elected next cycle, because it's not gonna happen. I promise you.
Yeah, along those lines, what Anthony is saying, as far as law enforcement being ticked off, I contacted my good friend Sheriff Mark Daniels of Cochise County, and I talked to him about this bill, and he was like, "Yeah, I've read it. This is a good bill." And he's a veteran. He served in the Army for 4 or 5 years back in the early 80s. That doesn't matter. I mean, he served. He's a veteran. And so did Sheriff Leon Wilmot of Yuma County. And, Sheriff, as a matter of fact, we got the letter the day of the meeting. And that's no small thing now. Yeah, that's no small thing. Because
I'm shaking my head because I'm just surprised of what is the resistance to go on the comments of the conflict of interest, Anthony, that you were saying about the about Steve. Even more, I think there's something up. I just think that I'm just saying, and I'll say it right now again. I think personal opinion, U.S. Army WTF, almost WTF Radio, everything said is said by me through is the person that said it. But I'm going to say this, that there's a lot of individuals, and I'm reading some of this out of the comments too, is that there is something that is somebody is hiding their own histories and their own pasts that are causing their concern. They're like, oh shit, if this goes through because of Steve Slayton, then you're as Jack always says, that human terrain network is gonna start spreading out like a web, and you're gonna see who exactly is connected to who. And then once we start connecting services, then this law is really it's gonna, rightfully so, kick them in the ass. This law is going to kick them in the ass once it's passed, and it revealed that there's a lot of individuals that may not be completely truthful on their service to get to their positions of where they're at.
Absolutely.
And so,
yeah, well, Peterson, you're talking about as far as a conflict of interest. I mean, Peterson's never served in the military, but I mean, he's the president. I mean, he's the quarterback. He's holding the ball, and the bottom line here is, he was around last year when all of this stuff broke with Wendy Rogers and Steve Slayton. And if he wanted this to go to the Judiciary Committee in the Senate, which is what he said, okay, The proper and correct thing for him to have done was he should have gone to Wendy Rogers and said, I need to have you recused. I need to appoint somebody else
Yep.
to do this duty because there may be a perceived conflict. He didn't do that. Instead, he let her slide on this for 3 weeks to the last minute. And had it not been for Walt and Shauna Bullock doing the striker bill, this would have been a done deal.
Oh,
They
yeah.
would have been in their back rooms smoking their cigars and drinking their brandy and say, "Yep, we got one over on the Arizonans again." I mean, this is typical. This is typical Arizona backroom deal corruption. That's what this is.
I agree.
It's plain and simple. You know, this bill that they're trying. You know, they're trying. And you know what, Sar Major, you know what I'm talking about. If the powers that be want to use laws and regulations as a weapon against you, they'll find a way. They'll find a way. I mean, you know, when in the military, if they want to railroad you, believe me, they can do it.
Everybody knows you could stack charges on shit that you had nothing to do connected to, but the way the UCMJ works can be a connection to stack a charge on you. You're like, what the hell? And if that doesn't work, they could do these new things called, well, not new things, but they can do admin seps. They can separate you administratively by using specific, and it's not a loophole. It's just there right there that they're just going to use it. I mean,
or the tried and true, we're going to send you to mental health because we think there might be a problem.
Right. Yeah. Oh, you need to calm down. Now that you okay there, Sart? No, I think you need to go ahead and calm down. And this bill not only covers the fact that individuals impersonating a veteran for benefit to get to where they're at, but this also was included with falsifying or altering military documents and include any certificates or release of discharge from active duty or personnel files, falsely wearing for personal benefit, or any combat-related or special skill badges and tabs not lawfully earned through military service. Me and Anthony, we've gone back and forth, not back and forth like arguing, but we've gone back and forth exchanging notes on recent elected officials falsifying, saying that they were authorized to wear specific badges or accoutrements. And I don't understand how, specifically since the in Arizona, you always hear rule of law. We want to make sure that everything's integrity and all that, and then all of a sudden you literally have something right there to highlight as your platform of quote unquote integrity to honor veterans. And the biggest thing for me is that I could not believe that I was watching on videos and watching on Facebook and watching on Twitter that there was I think was the final count about 72. I thought it was like 75, almost 80 or something like that. There was
I believe that it was 72 veterans and showed up. Yeah, it was somewhere around in there.
And they all showed up, and we were watching it stream on live. They didn't even get an opportunity to talk.
Nope.
Yeah.
That she wanted them. She did that on purpose. She did that on purpose. She tried to appease the people by putting the bill and says, "Okay, I'll hear the bill. I'm going to put it on the docket." It was on there. It was on the agenda. It had been on the agenda. We sent out the call, and the veterans responded to that call, and they showed up. Some driving hundreds of miles, some out of state, man.
Some flew out of state too. Yeah.
See, what she was trying to do is she was trying to kill it on a process procedure thing. Well, I reached out to Blackman, and he never reached out to me. And so, I'm sorry. I did what I was, which is patently false. It's not true. I mean, Blackman's staff has already gone on the record and said nobody from her office contacted us in regards to HB 2030 and any amendments. Now, let's talk about what she wants. Okay, she thinks that the bill needs to see, the goalpost keeps moving. Right, Tony? Because first it was, we want the bill to mirror the federal law. And then Walt and his team came forward and said, you didn't read the bill. It already mirrors the federal law. It doesn't take anything away from the federal law. All it does is it provides additional tools at the state level to go after people with tabs, accoutrement, lying about schools, forging their DD Form 214,
which is
you know,
already a federal,
yeah,
federal
It's
crime.
already it's already a crime to begin with. Yeah.
yeah, you know, and to provide it. Then they changed it, and now the thing is, well, we think the penalties are too harsh, and the penalties that they think are too harsh is the jail time, and the key one is removal from office. When I saw that, I was like, okay, I don't think it's just Wendy Rogers. I think there's other swinging dicks in this fucking state. Excuse my language. I don't normally swear, but I think there's other SOBs in this state, okay, that have lied about their military or misrepresented their military service, and they're sitting in office right now, and they're burning up the phone, calling in all the blue chips they got, saying, "Kill it, kill it. I don't care what you got to do, kill it."
Yep, exactly. They're moving the goalpost. They keep changing it. And as I've read, you know, I've had 3 people so far that had something to do with writing either federal or state laws. Sergeant Major, you know, I've been to several states and I've given testimony to have their state laws passed. New Jersey has a state law. Florida is actually going in and making this month they have submitted an amendment to actually strengthen their stolen valor law, that is already one of the strongest in the nation. And basically what Arizona has almost mirrors Florida's bill as well. And Florida's going in and adding.
I was about to say, yeah, isn't it going back to had the additional language too, right? Isn't it going back to get it added?
It's actually, Florida's actually going in and adding the part about for political office, because, you know, it doesn't specifically in their law, did not specifically say that political office would be a tangible benefit, which in my opinion it is. But they're going to add that language just to strengthen it. And so basically Florida and Arizona's laws would align exactly with each other. And Florida's law has already been tested for constitutionality and it is passed. I mean, so there's no excuse. They just like Dona said, the number one problem is Wendy Rogers is trying to protect Steve Slayton. That's the number one issue. And the number two issue seems to be now, since they're moving these goalposts, oh, well, we wanted to do this, we wanted to do that. And now Senator Warren's going behind people's backs saying, hey, you know, kill it, because he doesn't want to look, he doesn't want it to look bad on him. I've reached out to Warren and I've told him, look, I will speak to you. I will explain it to you and show you where this is constitutional. There's nothing wrong with your bill. Number one is it's up to the courts to decide. You know, if somebody gets charged under the Arizona bill and they want to challenge it in court, that's when you challenge the language of the bill is when it gets brought to court. But as it sits right now, it passes all constitutionality tests. There's nothing wrong with the bill. The only thing wrong is they want Steve Slayton to run in the next election. And if this bill passes, guess what? If Steve Slayton runs on his false record, Mr. Slayton, I know you're listening, or your wife's listening, or Wendy, you're listening. He cannot run on his fake background. And in saying that, I think the 2 pilots that Steve Slayton's walking on, their graves, I think they need to be heard from. And I'm just going to read an excerpt from somebody I got from the Vietnam Helicopters Association. And he said, the mean Mr. Mustard was an F-79 ARA Snake, Blue Max 2. It was shot down on 20 June 1972 at Anlock with Lieutenant Shields AC and Captain Northrop, co-pilot gunner. The aircraft was hit shortly after another Snake from F-9 with Brewer and Townsend were shot out of the air, flying low level when an SA-7 missile was fired almost parallel to the ground and left the crew nowhere to go and just augered in. Shields and Northrop survived the crash of Mean Mr. Mustard's. Shields was hit by 51 and Northrop was pulling him from the aircraft when the NVA came out of the bunker that they had crashed on top of and killed them both. Their bodies were recovered the next day. These sniffer missions would drive anyone crazy because you had to look forward as you flew 90 knots over the trees on a heading designated by the Cobra that was up high. I would get disoriented during my cross check if I spent too much time looking at the turn and slip because of the stuff whizzing by the chin bubble. When the Peter pilot had the controls, I would become totally convinced all scout pilots that spent every day in these trees were insane. Insane. Basically, these pilots every day were putting their lives on the line, and Steve Slayton is walking on the graves of these two fallen soldiers. And Wendy Rogers to stand up there and say that he is telling the truth. Oh, and let me also say something that she also said in her little press release that she lied in at least 3 times. Another lie is classified off the books missions. Bullshit. Bullshit. That is a line that is used by every Stolen Valor puke that I've ever outed. Is, oh, my mission was classified. You know what? Yeah, your mission may be classified, but where you were, what you did may be classified. And guess what? That was Vietnam. MACV-SOG had some of the most classified missions in Vietnam. All their missions are now declassified. Are you telling me, Steve Slayton, that you're the only one left out of Vietnam, that your secret mission to Vietnam is still classified? Bullshit, and you're walking on these men's graves, and you need to stop. Exactly. Wendy Rogers, you need to stand up for veterans, and you need to do the right thing. Mr. Peterson, you need to stand up for veterans and do the right thing. You need to stop allowing these people to walk on these men's backs.
You know, this issue with Mr. Peterson, you know, I was in the, I did the Fox News interview yesterday, and they cut out a lot of it, and I understand why, because, you know, they're under a time constraint. But, you know, this issue with Mr. Peterson, it is a study in the failure of leadership at all levels. I mean, it truly is. But it goes even deeper than that, and here is the reason why. And I explained this in my interview. We have a system of government, okay? There's 3 branches of government. There's the legislative, there's the judicial, and then there's the executive, okay? Now, the legislative branch has put forward this bill. The representatives of the people unanimously voted for it in the House. The votes are there in the Senate for the representatives of the people in the Senate, okay? Now, the definition of tyranny, okay, the very definition of tyranny, of a tyrant, is someone who suborns the lawful democratic process of a legislature, okay? And that is what Mr. Peterson is doing, because he knows that the Stryker bill should go to the House, and it doesn't go to a committee, and then it should go to the Senate, and it doesn't go to a committee, and then it goes to the floor. What Mr. Peterson is doing is what tyrants do. He is trying to create, based upon his position as president, extra powers and extra authority and extra process to derail this bill. When in point of fact, a Stryker bill should go to the House. It'll get voted on because it'll pass, and he knows it'll pass also in the Senate. So he's trying to conflate this whole issue of, first it's, well, you know, there's a dispute between the two of them. Well, we've got questions about the constitutionality of this. These are the things that you hear out of Castro. These are the things that you hear out of Maduro. I mean, these are what tyrants do. When they see a result that is about to happen that will impact them, they step in using their authority. They put their fingers on the scale to get the desired effect that they want.
Well fucking said, Sergeant Major.
Yeah, exactly, man. Exactly. I'm you know, when we're talking about human terrain and stuff like, and doing the webs, I think we need to do it, Jack. I think we need to build where it started.
IPB.
Yeah. Do the IPB, do the human terrain network map, and just say, okay, here's where the bubble goes here. Here's who it threads with that. I'm just shocked that I don't know. It's almost like someone coming around you saying that the sun is not shining. The sky is not blue when everyone can see that it's blue, and they're trying to gaslight veterans, and they're trying to gaslight individuals. Anthony, you got something that was kind of like cryptic, didn't you? You got like a "you better back off" message.
Oh yeah.
Can you go into that?
Yeah, I was told that I needed to back off for a few days because they might come after me and it might not be good. Well, you know what? Come after me. I want you to. I years now,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
I've been threatened, you know, in my house. I've had my kids' pictures posted on the internet with my address. Bring it. Bring it, Slayton. Bring it, Rogers. I'm here for the veterans. I'm here for the United States of fucking America. And this is our country. And the men and the women that wear that uniform deserve to be respected. And what you're doing is disrespecting every man and woman that has ever worn that uniform, every man and woman that is laying in graves in national cemeteries across this country. That is exactly what you're doing. Steve Slayton is a liar. He's a fraud. And if he wants to sue somebody, why do you want to attack Molly Ottman? You know, you can't come after me. Am I too much for you to come after? You got to pick on Molly Ottman. You know, I mean, come after me, Slayton. I'm right here. Everybody knows who I am. You got my address. Take me to court. I would love to see discovery. I would love it. Come after me. I'm here, buddy. I'm here. And I'm here for the American people. I'm here for my veterans. I'm here. My son just enlisted in the Marines. I'm here for him. So, I mean, Wendy Rogers, you're a disgrace. That's all I can say. You claim you're a Republican and that you're an American first veteran and you're all this and you're all that. You're not for America. You're not for the Republican Party. The Republican Party is supposed to be one of the most stand-up parties when it comes to veterans, and you are doing them a disservice by what you're doing right now. You are supporting someone that you know. You told somebody the way you knew he was lying. This is what she told people. Well, somebody asked her, well, how do you know Slayton's not lying? Oh, well, I looked into his eyes and I could see his soul.
Yeah, I've actually got that. I've actually got that in writing from her. I do. I do. But you know how bad the situation is. I'll tell you how bad the situation is. I never even realized this. You know, last year when Rogers was coming to me and she was saying, well, maybe you got this wrong and this and that. I know that Steve Slayton served in combat and this and that. And I kept telling her, Senator, it didn't happen. I know you want this to be true, but it didn't happen. Okay. And then she brought up the whole thing of this organization called Guardians of the Green Beret, Steve Anson. And she said, well, you know, that's a fake organization. And I told her, I said, listen, I said, I contacted Lieutenant Colonel P. Chambers. He's a 38-year Green Beret. And he told me, he said, listen, I know who these guys are. Okay. And I know who Anthony is also. And I know who military phone is. You don't want these guys on your ass because once they get, they'll never leave you, you know. So he basically, you know, Chambers told me that what I didn't know, and this just broke the other day, was I posted on Truth about the whole situation that's going on in regards to, you know, Wendy Rogers and the Stolen Valor bill. And Colonel Chambers responded to my truth, and I want to read it to you real quick. This is what he said with his photo from his account. This is a 38-year Green Beret. Yeah, Pete Chambers. Quote, this representative and veteran, Wendy Rogers, hit me up to hinder the investigation into Steve Slayton's false claims of military service in a combat zone. Her actions were not commensurate with those core military principles of honor. Her actions also serve as a reminder of the moral bankruptcy of most legislators today at both federal and state levels. The truth would have been better and appropriate. As a combat veteran and wounded warrior myself, my perception on these matters are crystal clear. If we want to stop the continued moral decline in this nation and maintain the military's prestige, honor, and esprit de corps, we must expose and remove the wrongdoers. Signed, Lieutenant Colonel Pete Chambers, United States Army, retired.
We got the Guardian of the Green Berets website up there with already, and the thing is that they've been guests with us before. So,
well, and a little secret about Guardians of the Green Beret that a lot of people don't know is Mr. Steve Anston. He and I worked together for many years. He worked with me Me and him worked hand in hand together. And I took a break for a while, and that's when he started Guardians of the Green Beret, and he focuses on mainly Green Berets, and that's how he got involved with with Slayton, because Slayton claimed at one point he was a Green Beret, and that's how Anston got involved. And I can promise you, he is not fake. He is a former Green Beret, and he knows what he's doing. Me and him worked together for many, many years. So Slayton, you're coming after the wrong ones, buddy. But hey, all I can say is bring it.
Yeah, I mean, you could see him wearing his his wings and all that, and throwing his little badges and stuff like that on his little hat.
There. Yeah, I actually did an analysis of that very photo right there. That in the bottom left hand corner, and using one of the programs that I use, I was able to actually zoom in to the very, very bottom right hand corner, because if you look at it, he has one more ribbon than he's actually authorized on his doctored DD Form 214. Mm-hmm. So he has one ribbon extra, and they couldn't figure out which one it was, and I actually found out what the ribbon was he was wearing, but he's not authorized to wear it. So,
and also with that 214, when I got it, I believe you sent the fake one to me, and I sent it over to Doug Sterner, who's also a Vietnam veteran, and he has done he's investigated Stolen Valor all his life as well, and Mr. Slayton added something in there called the Richard Nixon Vietnamese program or some
Vietnam program or something like that. Yeah.
It was Nixon Vietnamese program of 1974,
which did not exist. There's no such thing, and there's no record of it. We weren't in Vietnam in 1974. I mean, it just blows my mind, and I want to go back to the units that Steve actually was in Korea. Like I said, I reached out to the Vietnam historical chapters and actually found several pilots that were in that unit. And one of the pilots wrote a memo to me. He said, "Here, Mr. Anderson, I was assigned to the 128th AHC from January of 1974 through January of 1975 as a Cobra instructor pilot and a maintenance test pilot. The 128th at that time only had 6 Cobras. Those of us that were assigned as Cobra pilots flew more UH-1 time than Cobras at the time because in peace, we did not have a mission. In fact, for at least half of my tour, our Cobras didn't even have weapons as they had not been shipped to the unit. We only went to the gunnery range once that year. They were never deployed from our base. I do not explicitly remember Mr. Slayton. However, in the year I was there, which he claims, we would not have ever used enlisted in the front seats for anything other than maybe a maintenance test flight, because the few times the Cobras flew, we had to put 2 qualified pilots in the aircraft to get them and to keep them current. We definitely did not have any enlisted pilots whatsoever. The U.S. Army did not have any enlisted pilots in that time frame. We did have then he goes on to talk about the Mean Mr. Mustard, which we've already covered. He said, if you have any questions that I could answer, please let me know. I will try and research what records I have left. And this guy also was the overseer of the Paris Peace Accords while he was there. So, Steve Slayton, he's been busted, and Wendy knows he's busted, and she still supports him. I just don't understand why. I mean,
you know what? While we're at it, I want to address another misnomer that still to this day people are still saying this. Okay, Steve Slayton is asserting that Walt Blackman or Molly Ottman or both of them, falsified records and stole his DD Form 214 and on and so on and so forth, and that's a lie. It's a bold-faced lie, and you know why? And the reason why it's a lie is because I wanted to put the system to the test myself, and I went and I said, let me file for my dad's full military personnel records jacket, which I did, and I just got it the other day, but that thick, that's 23 years of service, about that thick, but they gave me everything with a nice cover letter and everything addressed to me. So this nonsense about that they keep pushing that Walt Blackman, falsified this and that, then you know what? Then file charges.
Exactly.
Yeah, I mean, why don't they file charges?
Now,
I mean, if they really,
for those that don't know what FOIA means,
right.
it's a Freedom of Information Act, and it's an
Right.
actual filing that you could do on any service member, anybody. If you wanted to find out anything about any of us right now,
Yep.
which Anthony already has our DD-214s, you could hit the FOIA and process it. Hey, I want to know what so and so's records or whatever.
Which brings me to another lie that Wendy Rogers told in her press release. She also stated in her press release that the bill wouldn't work because no one in the state will have access to military records. That is a lie, and she knows it. The Freedom of Information Act is open for anybody and everybody. And when I responded to her, her press release, I put in there, when Tim Sheehy was running for office here last year,
Right.
there was questions about his record. He's a former Navy SEAL, recent, within the last 10, 15 years, and he was on several classified missions. Navy SEALs do classified missions, not Steve Slayton's, but Tim Sheehy. I got Tim Sheehy's record jacket within 2 weeks of filing with the Navy. And of course, there was some B6 information. B6 is classified information that was blacked out of his forms. But if you go look at my response to the Arizona GOP House representatives, when they posted her press release, I responded directly under it. And I posted two or three of the pages of his OMPF. Also, Governor Tim Walz, when all the shit went down with Governor Tim Walz, they were giving me shit about getting his records. The Army was, and they kept saying, I've been doing FOIAs for 20 years and I've never had this happen. But for almost 8 months, they kept saying some guidance that they couldn't release FOIAs to any third parties. Well, I want to give a shout out to Mr. Sean Parnell, who currently works for the Secretary of Defense now, Pete Hegseth. But Parnell seen my post and seen the problems I was having, and he personally reached out to me and said, "Hey, man, what's going on? How can I help you?" And I said, "Hey, Sean, check this out, dude. I've been trying to get records from the Army FOIA office now for over 8 months. Not just me. There's other reporters, and they're all getting turned down, saying, hey, no, we've got this guidance, and we can't release any records to third parties unless it's the actual soldier." He said, "Let me look into it." Within a week of him looking into it, I had 125 pages of Governor Tim Walz's records. 125 pages. And of course, his PII stuff that was like that was blacked out. But I've got his enlistment paperwork from the day he enlisted to the day he was discharged, which proves that he is not a sergeant major retired. He is a retired master sergeant because he did not complete the education he was supposed to complete. And that this going back to, I get called a MAGA sometimes. I get called a Democrat. I just call myself a MAGA Dem.
You're a MAGA Dem, man, and you've been blocked by both parties too. I got Tim Sheehy's DD-214, for example, by the way, just
exactly.
to show just where you could see right now, Anthony, what Anthony was referring to. It's not I think some of the stumbling blocks though during your hunt for Tim Walz's Governor Walz's DD-214 was probably because during the election and some holdouts within the office. I'll say,
oh, yeah.
I'll say it. Yeah, I'll say there's some guys right there that just did not fucking like the fact that people were digging in Walz's records that were probably partisan.
It's my understanding the director of the National Record Center was made gone. It's a new person now. But my wife just brought this in to me. This is my dad's record.
Holy shit!
Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah, I mean, you can see it. My dad. Yeah. I mean, they sent it to me. That's everything. That's like they send you everything.
Yeah.
They send you everything. So this lie that they keep pushing, saying, "Oh, records were falsified and they stole our records and they did this and I got news for your listening audience, for those of you who did not serve in the military. Okay, that DD Form 214, okay, you get a copy of it, but it is actually the property of the United States government, the original. That is an official document of the United States government, okay? Because when you raise your right hand and you put the uniform on and you serve for however many years, you are the property of the government. Therefore, since taxpayers paid your salary while you were in the military, they have a right to see what type of service you gave to the country.
Because
This is
exactly.
this total nonsense where it's like, oh, you can't see someone else's DD form 214. Oh, you can't. That's total bullshit.
There was another falsehood stating that you can't get a DD 214 of a live veteran. It has to be a dead veteran or something like that.
No, and where that misnomer comes in is you can't get the PII of that veteran until I think it's a 62-year hold.
Mm-hmm.
So in other words, if it's been 62 years, then the Privacy Act no longer applies to that record. So when they send it to you, it'll have their service number, it'll have their next of kin. But like if I was to pull Master Sergeant Dona's records today, they would send me his entire OMPF if I asked for it. It would just have his personal information blocked out, his date of birth, his social, his next of kin, things like that. Other than that, his entire OMPF, including you, Miss Wendy Rogers, if you're listening, is open and available to the public.
Oh,
and
yeah.
Anybody can request it and see it.
Oh, yeah. I can't wait for that unwrap party. If you guys are not listening or not following on, these two gentlemen here, Jack and Anthony, they jump on different platforms to discuss. And right now, a lot of the traction that we're seeing a lot of posting on is on X. So that's why we brought them on here to discuss on all of our other platforms, Facebook and YouTube, so that way they could catch you up. Because what's going to happen is that as this progresses, there's going to be what they call spaces on X. If you don't have X, you get on a space. And I mean, brother, as a matter of fact, all three of us have been on almost 4 or 5 hour spaces, just bullshit and just discussing wargaming, not wargaming bad things, but just like, asking questions of the why and why would somebody do this? One of the things that I remember from the last space was, is there any legislation? And I was going to ask it in the space, but I'm going to ask it now. Would it be possible to introduce any legislation from anybody to put a DD-214 like on special paper? Because we talked about the special paper stuff, because it's easy to I mean, literally, I did it yesterday. There's different programs that you can use your PDF, but there are programs that will immediately break down a form and you're able to edit it and manipulate it. And so threw a little big, freaking LED light above my head that I think almost like a birth certificate, well, like some sort of crinkle paper or some paper with some fiber in there. And then we were talking about records keeping and all that, and how the government would be able to keep it or not keep it. What I thought of was like an idea, is that once a veteran gets a DD-214, there should be 3 copies. There is a birth certificate copy for you and the veteran. There's a birth certificate copy like for the VA to hold it, and a birth certificate like document that goes to your home of records, City Hall.
Yes.
And so I was curious, that like I said, that sparked a ton of ideas, because that right there.
When did you come in, Ken?
I signed the paper 12/29/89, so December 29th, 1989.
So I came in 82, and back then, they were still, I remember this, they were still telling people that after you muster out, you take your DD form 214 and have it logged at your county recorder's office.
Correct.
And have them put a stamp and a seal, and so that it's there in case you ever lose it. You can always go and get a certified copy from the county courthouse. So
exactly, and that's one thing I want to do. And I've got some contacts in the federal government now that I've kind of been putting a bug in their ear. Hey, something needs to be done, because a lot of the cases I've done over the years, Ken, you've seen some of them. Dona, you've probably seen some of them, where it's where they forged the 214. And a lot of the people that work at, say, the Veterans Administration, they're not military. Some of them are civilians, and they don't know how to look at a 214 and tell if it's fake or if it's real.
Correct.
So, and that was one of 2 cases I prosecuted or had prosecuted where they turned in fake VA DD-214s to the VA. I had one where the guy put in block 18 that he had I think it was 100 and maybe it was either 120 or 1,200 confirmed kills.
Yeah.
I mean, me and you and Dona look at that and that's an automatic red flag. Nobody does that, but this guy did it.
Yeah.
Yeah, but and the thing is here's I just want to throw this out here. This is in 1977, 1978 anymore, where you could find a period correct typewriter, type it in, which is, if you read my analysis that I did on Steve Slayton's DD Form 214, if you pull it up, if you look at it, it actually aged correctly. It looks like this document was altered back in 1977, 78 with a typewriter of that period, because when I ran it through my programs, it basically came back saying that it has aged, and there was no new artifacts that were on there. So I actually put in there that if this document was altered, it was definitely altered a very, very long time ago. But it makes sense, and I've been asked this question also: what would be the reason for why? And if you check out Mr. Slayton's background, he's been heavily involved in the American Legion for decades. And I believe he was also a Legion he might have been a Legion commander, and he was a Legion commander. But guess what? I mean, back then, in the 60s and the 70s, I remember going through the American Legion with my dad and the VFW with my dad. The guys that ran those places were the old Korean War veterans, and the Vietnam veterans were coming in. And if you did not have hard combat time, you didn't get in the front door.
Yep. Some guys even would bring legit their citations, their awards as well, because there's order numbers on there and stuff like that. On the 2 Alpha 2 Alpha 2-1 and their 2-1 files.
So that would be a motivation for someone to do that, because then you've altered it, so now you're in, and it's not like today you're going to get caught. Mm-hmm. Everything's digitized now. It's like it's not like they request your records and then maybe you might get it in a year or a year and a half. No, you try and do something like this, you're going to get caught.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Somebody like me or Dona or Guardians of the Green Beret, especially when you're running for an office like Steve Slayton tried to do, you're going to get busted. You're going to get caught. Don't do it. And at this point, a lot of people do it because there's no laws in place that they give them consequences for doing it.
Right.
That's exactly what the Arizona Stolen Valor law would do. It would stop people like Steve Slayton for running for office and representing his people based on a lie. I mean, I wouldn't want, I wouldn't want somebody that lied about their military service to represent me in Congress or in the Senate or the legislature
and give a speech about integrity.
And just to make sure that your listening audience knows, okay, here is the list up to the top of my head of all of the people who pulled this guy's records and basically came back and said what we're getting from National Record Center is not the same as what this guy's waving around and saying is DD Form 214. We can start off with Anthony here, Molly Ottman of the Mountain Daily Star, Fox 10 News Phoenix, AZ Central, Rolling Stone Magazine, NBC News, Brom Resnick. I mean, that's 6 people. Okay. If I were Steve Slayton and I was innocent, okay, by now I would have filed multiple lawsuits against multiple people. I would have been trucking out all of my chingos saying, these are the guys that I was with. Yeah, here's my statement from this guy. Here's my statement from here's my my award certificates. Here's my orders. None of that has happened.
Not to mention unit photos, because most if anybody who went to Vietnam back in the day, they had like a little group photo around the aircraft, or they had like processing photos, something, or pictures of them going to from wherever they're going. They're on the plane right out there, or they hit the airfield, and you see or Stars and Stripes would have taken some pictures of all that. I mean,
he has one photo in front of a Cobra, one photo. That's it. He has not had any any buddies come forward and say, hey, Steve Slayton served with me. He was in combat in Vietnam. I mean, I served in Afghanistan. I know of at least 5 people right now I could call and could say, yeah, I was there with you. I'm sure you guys could do the same.
Yep.
Steve Slayton, where are your war buddies at? Where's you're the only one that says you were in Vietnam.
We have a guy on our think tank, Ken, who was actually with the 128th, and he got assigned there in 78 or 79, and he had his yearbook and everything, and this guy's a retired GS-15 Defense Intelligence Agency. He's a former he's former spook, But anyway, and I talked with him about it, and he said, man, this guy is lying. This guy is lying. There's no way. He says, you know what? The 128th, we had maybe 3 or 4 operational choppers at the time. He said, for us to have mobilized on a secret mission, he said there would have been people talking about tall tales about, going to Vietnam.
Yeah, there'd have been some stories out of that.
Just some breaking news on this subject. I just got a text message. The mayor of Show Low, Arizona, which is where Mr. Slayton is from, has now signed in support of the Stolen Valor bill.
Oh.
Arizona Attorney General's office has just Nick DeBus of the Arizona Attorney General's office just signed in support of this Stolen Valor bill. On top of the Arizona Sheriff Association that Mr. Dona was just talking about. Yeah. And that's coming from Molly Ottman. She just got verification that they have just signed in support of this legislation. Also, I want to put out there that Molly Ottman has just released a story. And Ken, I'm not sure if you have access to it. I'll post it on my page if not. But she has just released a very good story that covers everything we've just talked about and a little more. So if your listeners want to go to her Facebook page, which is mountaindailystar.com, or her X, which is MTN
Daily Star. Nope, we got it. I already got it ready to go in case there was any breaking news. So
she's got a good story up there. So yeah, I mean, and my thing is Wendy Rogers, she knows she's lying. She's been caught in several different lies. In her press release, there's 3 different lies that we've just already talked about. So her press release is false. Warren Peterson, running whatever game he's running, I'm not sure what it is, trying to kill this bill. There's no reason to. It's constitutional. The people want it. It passed the House 58-0. I mean, we want to be in a nation where everybody gets along and the legislatures and the congressmen can come together and agree on something. Here it is. We have a bill that almost every Arizonian supports.
Yep.
It passed the House 58-0.
And you're spot on. And Tony, you're spot on. And I mentioned this yesterday in the Fox News interview. I said exactly what you said. I echo exactly what you said. And then I caveated with, and why haven't the people who endorsed Slayton pulled their endorsement? Why hasn't Andy Biggs pulled his endorsement of Steve Slayton from last year? Why hasn't Eli Crane pulled his endorsement? Why hasn't Mark Fincham pulled his endorsement? All of these pictures that appeared with Wendy Rogers and Steve Slayton and all of these public events, smiling and this, that, Steve Slayton, Wendy Rogers, his teammate and everything. All of these people, radio silence. I mean, Eli Crane is a retired Navy SEAL. Where are the leaders of the state of Arizona who should be stepping forward and taking a leadership stance and saying, no, this is wrong?
Exactly.
We should not be doing this to our veterans, our military retirees, and most importantly, we got men and women right now who are serving in uniform that are protecting us, and this law would protect their reputations and their valor and their achievements in the future. We owe it to them also, not just the ones that are in repose in the national cemeteries, and not the ones that are struggling, with VA appointments and they were exposed to Agent Orange or whatever and stuff. It's all encompassing. This bill is all encompassing.
And they're all watching.
Yeah,
And
they're all just staying silent.
This bill in Arizona, this Stolen Valor bill, has gotten so big that it's gone nationwide now. I mean, it's gone all the way to the top of the administration. The Trump administration is very well aware of what's going on in Arizona. And
I was about to ask. Any feedback from anybody from the administration on this?
Yes, I won't name names, but I have talked to several, and they are very well aware, and they are watching what is happening in Arizona right now. And there's going to be phone calls made, is from what I'm told, because there's no when you have a Republican bill that goes to the House and gets passed, and then goes into a committee, and then a Democrat at the end of the committee stands up and tries to get a voice vote on a Republican bill, and the Republican and then another Republican says, no, we have a problem. We have a problem in the Arizona Senate.
You can't lie. Maybe we need to send some of them over to Congress and get that bipartisanship going, because I'm just blown away how, again, going back to the sky is blue. Everyone else is saying the sky is blue, but there's only a few individuals that don't want to pass the sky is blue bill, I guess you'd say. You know?
Well, I say three.
It's like,
Three.
It's like the other night I looked at my wife, and I says, "Hey, babe," I said, check out this post from Ruben Gallego. He supports the Stolen Valor bill, and he's calling for Peters. And I'm like, she looked at me. Are you serious? I said, yeah, Ruben Gallego and Chris Mays. It's like the Democrats are fighting harder for this bill than Republicans. I mean,
it was their bill.
It was their, yeah.
Bizarro world. Like
exactly. Oh no, we've worked with Ruben Gallego before on a story about immigration and the border and veterans and stuff. So I knew when it came to something like this, he was gonna provide some support as well. That now there's a lot of people in the comments. I mean, the comments are just going pretty good. There's a lot of people saying, "So what's the big deal? But why isn't?" Because there's currently two stories, and I was going to talk about this during when we were going to hit a break, but we're just going to go through the break. But there was going to be there's two stories right now. There's two trending stories right now, currently in active duty, where two soldiers are a false representation, wearing medals and wearing combat patches and wearing badges that they shouldn't be. We have the UCMJ, and this is to explain the audience. We have the UCMJ. For active duty soldiers, for service members who are not supposed to wear stuff, they're not supposed to wear a Ranger tab, they're not supposed to wear a CIB or a CAB, they're not supposed to wear a combat patch, because now there's more scrutiny to that as well. People ask on the civilian side, though, this is just a mental issue. This is just even in the active duty side, we're getting this, hey, don't dime these out because you're not thinking about their behavioral health. I don't like this line of accountability being tied to behavioral health. If you get caught doing something that you fucking know you're not supposed to be doing, has zero to do with behavioral health. It's accountability.
I mean, we can, if you're going to do that, we can apply that to every criminal that's ever committed a crime.
Thank you. Come on. Yeah. This is a harmless. Somebody said in the comments too. This is all in the comments. If you go to U.S. Army W.T.F moments on their Facebook page. And you guys might have seen it already we posted the article, the Wendy Rogers article of that. And under the comments is where you get that, well, it's not a big deal. This is harmless. This is not hurting anybody and all that. But yet when it comes to other methods of accountability, let's blast them. These guys should be shot. They need to go to court. I'll sue you. Hey man, this is not right. Blah, 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 blah. So I just want the audience to know that if you're using the behavioral health card to legit steal valor, to gain something monetarily, or like you said, positional for notoriety, I don't feel sorry for you. I really don't.
Yeah, and I don't either. I mean, and this goes back. I mean, if you think about it, Blumenthal. Blumenthal did the same thing. He didn't claim any awards, but he claimed he was in combat in Vietnam, and that's how he got the nickname of Da Nang Dick.
Da Nang Dick, yep.
Because he lied about serving in Vietnam. He didn't go as far as Slayton has done, but it's the same. It falls back to integrity. I mean, even on the civilian side, if you think back to what Brian Williams did when he was doing NBC Nightly News, and he came out and said that while he was in Iraq doing a story that his helicopter got hit by an RPG.
I remember that. Yeah,
helicopter, and those soldiers came forward, and I talked to a few of them. They said, "Dude, he wasn't in that helicopter. The helicopter that got shot at was behind him." Brian Williams wasn't even in the military, and he lost his job because of that lie.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So, I mean, if it can apply to civilians, it should definitely apply to somebody that is a veteran like Steve Slayton that knows better. And for him to do it, it's even worse because he's walking on the graves of people that have died. My dad served 2 tours in Vietnam. I lost him on Memorial Day. And I can tell you right now, excuse my French, but if he was around and Steve Slayton come up into him, he would beat Steve Slayton's ass.
Yep.
Period.
Yep. And also, to me, the big deal is that not only does it tarnish the service of those who've actually earned those titles and accolades, and there's also benefits tied to somebody getting a Purple Heart. There's also benefits tied to somebody saying for Agent Orange. There's also benefits tied to, I mean, it's not just the notoriety stuff or you get elected because of it, but for the money that we're always talking about, the VA not having enough or the VA fucking it up, these guys are just turds clogging up the fucking pipes when they do this.
And the VA loses a lot of money to Stolen Valor.
Right.
I mean, it's I think on one time I did some research on how much the VA OIG lost in Stolen Valor cases, whether it be false claims or turning in false DD-214s, and there's a lot of them. I've been asked several times to come to some local VAs and give classes on how to actually read and tell if a DD-214 is fake. Because at one point in a 2-year period, I think it was a 2-year period, the VA lost $72 million in benefits to fake veterans that should have went to actual veterans that could have used that money.
Exactly. That's why when someone says, well, it's not harmless. No, it is harmful. Don't say it's harmless. It is harmful to veterans that are currently saved, because I mean, I'll be honest with you. Do you think, I'm like waffling a little bit on the Doge thing, but I think Doge should hit it, but I don't want them to overdo it. Does that make sense? That's kind of like almost like, I don't want to say loose cannon type shit, but it's kind of like, I want Doge to hit it. I want everybody to see the amount of fraud, waste, and abuse is going on in the VA for individuals that are taking advantage of these benefits that are not supposed to. And I'm just curious, have we heard, is there anything out there that's
well, I have to say, I have to give credit to the VA OIGs, because I have worked with them in several cases, and they do, when they get a case of Stolen Valor, they do their due diligence and they investigate these cases, and they will prosecute them. I mean, you can do a Google search and you can find where the VA OIG has prosecuted multiple cases of Stolen Valor.
It's my understanding that a lot of these cases now that are being caught by the VA are old cases. People that basically because now I guess the VA gets a copy. They get a digital copy. So it's like if you file for benefits and you file with a fraudulent DD form 214, I mean, they're gonna catch it right away, or they should.
Well, so some of them do. Some of them. I mean, I think it depends on what VA you're at. But I know they have a system. They're trying to connect, but the systems aren't talking like they should. But guess what? The VA does do. The VA does a FOIA, and the VA, guess what? They're not constrained by the PII laws and the Privacy Act and the HIPAA laws. So if they go and say, "Hey, Mr. Army guy, if something looks funky," they can get your records by just calling the Department of Defense, Fort Knox, whoever, and say, "Hey, I need records on such and such," and they get them. You don't get the protection that you get as if myself or Dona were to request your records.
Yeah, and that, like you were saying, they have the authorization to look at full PII and your medical. I mean, they're looking at everything. They're looking at, this guy.
I think a good thing would be like maybe when because when you muster out or when you retire, you go to retirement services and basically they get all of your medical records and they get everything. They go through your DD form 214. I think along the lines of what you were talking about, Ken, if they could blockchain the DD form 214 so that basically it's like, no, the copy you're submitting does not match the blockchain, immediately.
Yeah. And that's what I'm saying. That's what I was talking about. Any type of federal legislation to say, okay,
Yep.
as soon as a service member departs, they really are verifying. I mean, it has to be also a really good verification. None of this service member not available to sign. No. There's got to be a legit, because that service member not available to sign also, I think, opens up to more fraud anyways, because if it's sent out and that individual sees it and that person can contest it, or a claims process or rebuttal process in the event there's a soldier not available to sign, then again, those three places, the VA, your freaking courthouse, and then your own, your records, and that's it. And then anything that,
and the soldier not being there to sign, I think is a bad thing. Not only because of that, but because the soldier, all their medals on their 214, that are in their OMVA.
That's true.
214 and say, hey, I'm missing an MSM or something like that. And that your me books, that's why you keep get every NCOER, every OER, whatever you get in your career. When you get that 214, you can look at it and say, hey, wait a minute, this is missing.
Exactly. Well, gentlemen, dude, this has been awesome.
We should know. Tomorrow there's a press conference. Tomorrow, 1 o'clock.
The here.
And I posted.
Somebody said in the comments.
Growing up in force. And it blows my mind. One senator.
Yep.
Big time.
He's got a fake character to walk on the.
Hey, here's another. Yeah. Rogers is cheeky there and show. Well, cast. Blatant story. Get up. Actually, brother.
About to say. Oh. Or Facebook.
Slayton. Steve Slayton. Like buddies that can
making me bust. Gentlemen, pleasure. I'm gonna go. I'm on. Gentlemen,
say Peterson. Hard to do. Bill's got from the
exactly.
100. Parent and take. We are be back. All know, you know, all great. Find out if